Saraswati definitely was not a mythical river. We have lot of references in our ancient literature. I also presented and several scholars have worked including Professor Michel Danino, who is here. So you see, it is glorified in our ancient literature, and it has a specific geography that is described in our ancient literature. And starting from 19th century, it is not very new. Like 19th century onward, geologists were the first to identify Oldham. They published maps in the 19th century 1863 70s and 1890s. Two different Oldhams they published. They traced the Saraswati River. Later on, 1960s and 70s, the remote sensing, it played a very crucial role. Many different geologists, they used remote sensing and identified a dried river bed running parallel to Indus River, to the east of Indus River, from the Shivaliks to the run of Kutch. So that's a clear-cut evidence that there was a river. You see, the relevance of the past is that we understand ourselves in a better manner. One is that is the relevance of the past, and we can also try to understand in a manner that we can discard all the myths, right? We should not follow the myths, follow the wrong stories perpetuated by vested interest. So one can take a very pointed decision based upon our understanding of our past. If somebody is coming and tell you that your history is that you are always relied upon various other technologies that came from outside. No, you can say no. I mean, we were inventing ourselves, we were also coexisting, we were also learning, but it's not that everything was imposed upon us or everything we learned from outside. So that is one story. You can better represent yourself, I would say.
Namaste everyone. Namaste sir. My name is Jagar Devjani. I am first year student of Indus University from CSE branch. I welcome you here on behalf of ICAS Club of Indus University. Sir, your talk was wonderful. I'd like to have a few questions. I'm very curious even about it. Sir, what motivates archaeologists to excavate? गड़े मुर्दे उखाड़ने का फायदा और नुकसान क्या है सर? And what was your journey as well, sir? How your career, मतलब आर्कियोलॉजी आपने एक करियर के तरीके से कैसे सोचा, कैसे आगे बढ़े सर? I'd like to know that with your permission.
So it's not only we excavate gade murde, right? I mean, it's not only our job. I mean, we try to understand the past humans as a whole. Lifestyles, how did they originate, how did they live, what did they do in their during the lifetime, everything. So excavation comes at the very end. It's not our job starts with excavation, right? We do a lot of field work. We go around, we use a lot of technologies nowadays. Remote sensing is used extensively to locate ancient sites. Then we do the ground survey. When we do the ground survey, then when we come to know about certain potential sites, then again we do the ground investigations, surface investigations. We try to plot whatever the surface remains are there, and then when we see something potential, then we go and excavate. So this is how the archaeological process. It's slow and tedious, but yet it is nowadays more scientific. So looking into my journey, I started a career in archaeology because of an accident, right? I mean, I did my graduation course. I was doing BSc Physics. Then when I was looking for a postgraduate course, I was looking into something interesting. Then I found archaeology something like it was not preferred by most of my colleagues at that particular point of time. So I found it more interesting, and then when I did after doing my MA degree, then I gained slowly interest, and through my career in Archaeological Survey of India, so that interest grew. And ultimately, when I found that archaeology cannot survive without the aid of scientific techniques, then I started to add more and more scientific aids, and that's how my journey into IIT Gandhinagar it started. the interaction, and ultimately we are now into kind of building more facilities to understand archaeology through scientific means.
Archaeology is a multidisciplinary activity. So, how engineering students like me can do our side of work? I mean, how we can even do something for archaeology as मतलब excavate करना सर, हड़प्पन हड़प्पन के बारे में जानना वो हमारे लिए किस तरीके से फ्रूटफुल रहेगा सर?
Yeah, it's a multidisciplinary subject now, and any discipline can contribute. Like you are from computer sciences, right? So you can do a lot of help in to the archaeologists in understanding even the Indus script. I mean, we are now, I mean, many people they are using a lot of computer tools, artificial intelligence to understand the arrangement of the different letters, whether it was an alphabetic or a pictographic or a logosyllabic. There are various stages of a script. But if you do a structural analysis, that cannot be done manually. But through the aid of computers, one can always help. There are a lot of applications of computer science is useful in archaeology to reconstruction of cities and towns, because we don't see complete houses and remains from here. Whatever we get the remains, that can be beautifully reconstructed using a lot of computer aids also. It's not necessary that different discipline people also go and excavate, right? It's not necessary that you should go and excavate. You can aid the archaeologists, you can assist the archaeologists through various means. That's what we are looking into, because it's not a single discipline job anymore. The archaeologist cannot fulfill the needs of the entire gamut of knowledge. They have to take aid of various disciplines.
Sir, we know Harappan civilization was 10,000 years old, approximately. So, was there any culture or civilization which existed before Harappans?
I once saw Harappan culture existed in 10,000 BCE. Harappan culture means, I mean, from 2600 to 1900 BCE. That's what the Harappan culture is. Before 2600, there are several regional cultures. I also indicated that in my talk, that there were several regional cultures in different parts of the Harappan domain, like in Sindh, in Gujarat, in Punjab. There are different set of people with different technology, different ways approach, different diet practices maybe. But ultimately, they integrated into one Harappan culture around 2600 BCE. But even before that, I mean, if you look at the regional cultures, they were simple farmers around 8000 BCE. Simple farmers producing crops, self-sustaining themselves. Slowly, they grew into a large community, right? And even before that, they were as a hunter-gatherers. They were not living anywhere. They were just roaming from place to place, collecting food and consuming whenever there was a necessity. And beyond that, they were not storing anything. So that is the basic difference between a settled human life and a hunter-gatherer or a wandering sort of way of life. So once they started to settle down, they understood the necessity that they have to store food for the year-long period, right? So that transformed them, transformed our own past history.
Sir, Harappan civilization was in the past. We are in present. Sir, how archaeology and excavation can help in future? मतलब सर suppose we have to फ्यूचर के लिए क्या फायदा है सर एक्सकवेशन का और आर्कियोलॉजी का?
You see, a lot of things we can learn from our past. For example, from the Harappan civilization, we can learn a lot from the Dholavira, at least, water management, how they were surviving in that kind of environment some 4500 years back, right? So nowadays, we do a lot of transformation in the landscape, we do alter the drainage system, we completely falter in many of the things. We face floods, we face drought, everything. But how they were managing, right? So how they were diverting the water resources, building dams. It's not a huge reservoir, right? I mean, like what we are constructing today. But they were self-sustaining, and they were using that resources to the maximum extent, and they were adjusting to the climatic changes and also to the local environment. So what we need to learn is that we should not overpower the nature. We should adjust with the nature and live along with it, not try to empower it, and not trying to kind of overcome all the natural resources at one go and then search for the future, right? So we have to get ourselves limited to the whatever available natural resources so that we can sustain long. That's what we have been doing for the past thousands of years, right? So that one good lesson we can learn from our past.
Sir, apart from sophisticated and advanced technological skills, like you mentioned about Dholavira, what are the other things which we can, matlab, in the past of Harappan civilization, we know about roads, sewage systems, but what are the other aspects, the other features of Harappan civilization, which were not that much highlighted as they, मतलब उनको जितना करना चाहिए था उतना उनका मेंशन नहीं किया गया.
One thing I pointed out about the grinding stones, right? Grinding stones, it's such an important component of day-to-day life. Jewelry वगैरह, okay, one gets fascinated by the jewelry, gold, silver, and all those stuff. But these are mundane things, right? They are using in a day-to-day life. Every kitchen used to have this kind of grinding stones. That is one thing, one aspect which is really forms part of the day-to-day life. But other thing is ceramics. We forget a lot about the ceramics because for all their activities they were using the pottery. जो आजकल हम लोग यूज ही नहीं करते, मटका वगैरह यूज ही नहीं करते, ओनली मे बी इन समर हम लोगों को जरूरत पड़ जाता है पानी स्टोर करने के लिए, राइट? बट अदरवाइज these ancient cultures, they were using ceramics for all their purpose: cooking, storage, transportation, and there are different set of ceramics for different purposes. So nowadays people, they are working with sophisticated technologies. उसका अंदर का सैंपल निकाल के लिपिड एनालिसिस करके whether it is used for cooking milk products or meat products or any other thing, वो knowledge वगैरह gain कर सकते हैं. So we get into more about their lifestyle, right? What they were eating, what they were cooking, है ना? Because you see, whatever pattern of crops and vegetables we are seeing now, it's a combination of several centuries of introduction by the outside world. Portuguese brought something, Spanish brought something, or British brought something. Through various what is it, kind of transactions, some of the crops might have come here. But ultimately, if you go back in time, उस पीरियड का लाइफस्टाइल क्या था, डाइट प्रैक्टिसेस क्या था, that is not covered a lot. But now it's gaining popularity. More and more people are working on that, and we are slowly gaining insights how it could have been. I mean, आप लोगों ने नोटिस किया होगा कि नहीं, नेशनल म्यूजियम तो एक प्रोग्राम भी शुरू किया था कि हरप्पन डाइट सर्व करने के लिए, है ना? सो इट हैज बिकम मोर पॉपुलर. सो इफ समबडी वांट्स टू हैव अ हरप्पन पीरियड meal, so that is also can be imagined and served, right? So that is one fascinating thing. It's really interesting for me.
Namaste, sir. I am Kshitij Pandey. I am first year student from Indus University, and I am very curious to know about Harappan civilization, and I have some question regarding that. So my first question is, sir, we know about Harappan civilization, how advanced it is, but still archaeologists are unable to decipher its script.
So you see, any unknown script, for that to be deciphered, there are certain preconditions, right? You need to get a bilingual inscription, bilingual or a trilingual inscription, like what it happened in the context of Egyptian or the Mesopotamian. So in the case of Egyptian civilization, they found the Rosetta Stone. You might have heard about Rosetta Stone. अभी तो एक computer language भी है, software है, Rosetta. This Rosetta Stone, it was written during the Greek period, right? 3rd century BCE. But what they did, they wrote the same matter in an ancient script known as hieratic. It's a cursive form of Egyptian writing. उसी matter को then they wrote it in hieroglyphic. That's a 3rd millennium BCE script. So they wrote the same content in 3 different scripts. So Greek, it could be readable in 19th century. So from that they started to understand the hieroglyphic, है ना? They first deciphered the ruler's name, क्योंकि ruler's name को क्या करते थे Egyptians, एक outline देते थे, उसको cartouche बोलते हैं, right? So they deciphered Ptolemy and Cleopatra. So from that slowly they deciphered. So एक बहुत अच्छा एक evidence है. Then cuneiform को सेम एक ट्राइलिंगुअल इंस्क्रिप्शन मिला था, बेहुस्तून करके एक जगह है ईरान में, वहां उनको ट्राइलिंगुअल इंस्क्रिप्शन मिला, देन दे डिसाइफर्ड. ये एग्जांपल्स ऑफ बाइलिंगुअल और ट्राइलिंगुअल. और अननोन स्क्रिप्ट जहां कोई एविडेंस नहीं था, वो लीनियर बी करके एक स्क्रिप्ट है ग्रीक का, है ना? दैट डेट्स बैक टू द second millennium, Mycenaean civilization. वो पता नहीं था किस स्क्रिप्ट में लैंग्वेज में लिखा है क्या है. सो दे डिड स्ट्रक्चरल एनालिसिस. स्ट्रक्चरल एनालिसिस मीन्स फर्स्ट प्री कंडीशन इज यू नीड टू हैव अ लॉन्गर इंस्क्रिप्शन. 50 साइंस से ज्यादा होना चाहिए, लॉन्गर सेंटेंसेस, 2-3 सेंटेंसेस होना चाहिए. देन यू कैन एनालिसिस. ग्रामर अंडरस्टैंड कर सकते हैं, राइट. वॉट एवर वी स्पीक, आपका नाम क्या है, दैट्स इज डिफरेंट स्ट्रक्चर, राइट. है पहले नहीं आएगा, राइट. सो लाइक दैट, सो दे डिड द स्ट्रक्चरल एनालिसिस and ultimately they substituted with different language groups and ultimately Greek fitted in, वो decipher कर दिया. और next stage Mayan hieroglyphic, Mayan civilization सुना होगा सेंट्रल अमेरिका में. that also they did a computer analysis and ultimately known population था. Mayans का जो descendants है अभी भी सेंट्रल अमेरिका में, right. so from there they could separate some ancient words Mayan language, then they could decipher that. इंडियन हरप्पन में आते हैं. हरप्पन में जो है लॉन्गेस्ट इंस्क्रिप्शन इज 16 लेटर्स, राइट. जहां 50 लेटर तो होना चाहिए, 16 लेटर्स लॉन्गेस्ट, दैट इज ओनली वन. और शॉर्टेस्ट इंस्क्रिप्शन जो है सिंगल, 1 लेटर्ड. और स्ट्रक्चरल एनालिसिस जो किया है, इट इज नॉट एन अल्फाबेटिक, इट इज नॉट अ सिलेबिक स्क्रिप्ट, इट इज अ लोगो सिलेबिक स्क्रिप्ट. लोगो सिलेबिक का मतलब क्या है? वन साइन कैन बी ए कंप्लीट वर्ड इन इटसेल्फ. एक सर्कल बनाया मैंने, इसमें स्पोक बनाया, तो इट कैन बी ए कंप्लीट वर्ड और ए सिंगल फोनेटिक वैल्यू. कॉम्प्लेक्स हो गया. बाइलिंगुअल स्क्रिप्ट नहीं है हमारे पास, लैंग्वेज पता नहीं है. सो दिस इज द सिनेरियो. सो इट इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू डिसाइफर हरप्पन स्क्रिप्ट इन द एब्सेंस ऑफ एनी बाइलिंगुअल स्क्रिप्ट. Structural analysis is also not helpful because inscriptions are very short and the logosyllabic nature, right. These are the complexities.
My next question is, do you feel there was a priest king during Harappan period who was controlling the society?
ये जो priest king करके मार्शल ने जो नाम दिया है, that's a misnomer. I mean, we don't know whether he was really a king, he was really a priest, right. एक फिगरिन मिला, उसको उन्होंने प्रीस्ट किंग आई मीन करके नॉमेनक्लेचर दिया, बट वी डोंट नो वेदर ही वाज एक्चुअली अ प्रीस्ट और अ किंग. बट व्हाट वी अंडरस्टैंड इज दैट देयर आर लार्जर सिटीज, दे माइट बी कंट्रोलिंग ए हिंटरलैंड. दिस इज द पॉपुलर theories of archaeologists like Posel or Kenoyer. So they suggest that these cities, they control a hinterland, pull in the resources whatever available in the region, then they could have traded with other nearby regions, and there could be even matrimonial alliances also, but definitely there was no warfare. We don't find any warfaring communities during that particular point of time. So smaller city states might have controlled a smaller region and they were interacting with other nearby regions.
Thank you, sir. Sir, my next question is, how does archaeology have helped to debunk the Aryan invasion theory?
ये एक इम्पोर्टेंट एक कॉन्सेप्ट हम लोगों के मन में डाल दिया गया कि आई मीन देयर आर ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल हु इन्वेडेड, राइट. बट इफ यू लुक एट द लिटरेचर, देयर इज अ चेंज इन द परसेप्शन आल्सो. नाउ आर्यन इन्वेजन थियरी कोई नहीं बोलता है. आई मीन देयर यूज्ड टू बी अ टाइम व्हेन व्हीलर, ही वाज एन आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट, उन्होंने मोहनजोदड़ो करके एक साइट है जहां एक एविडेंस को देखा. ही टोल्ड, looking into the scattering of skeleton in one part of the Mohenjo-daro, he told the invading Aryans, they massacred the local population. But 1964 में George F. Dales करके एक अमेरिकन आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट है, so he with the help of other anthropologists, उन्होंने जब skeletons को देखा, they were not, they did not die due to some mortal wound, right. उनका जो बॉडी में जो wounds थे, they were all healing. It means after the wounds inflicted, they were living for a longer period. So in 1964 itself, Wheeler का जो theory है, it was debunked, and now scholars उसको Aryan invasion नहीं बोलते हैं. Later they switched it to Aryan migration. Now Aryans trickling करके भी बोलते हैं. But archaeologically क्या है? We don't have evidence. Whatever the theories say, the literature say, but archaeologically we don't have any conclusive evidence of any invasion happening, right. Interactions were happening. Interactions, as I told you, interactions were happening. They dates back to 8000 BCE, 10,000 years back. I showed you some images of how certain raw materials they were reaching from Central Asia from Oman coast or Makran coast. But definitely these interactions were happening, people were coming and going, borrowings were happening, but it was not leading to any invasion as such, right? So that is very difficult to say.
My next question is, sir, can you name one or two Harappan artifact that fascinate you most? As I wonder whenever I see a unicorn seal, what could be the probable meaning of that seal?
So the fascinating Harappan artifact for me, because I work on beads, Harappan beads. So my fascination is that waistband, right? Complete long cornelian beads, which took nearly 3 months for them to manufacture one complete waistband. So that really fascinates me, looking into the technology available at that particular point of time, the kind of raw materials they were procuring from a very long distance. So that fascinates me a lot. Coming to unicorn, there are several signs which appear on the seals, right? Unicorn appears nearly on 65 to 70% of the seals. Next comes the buffalo, right? So various animals are depicted, and scholars what they think is that these animals they represent the trading communities or the merchant communities or even clans, group of people who were controlling the trade, because the seals they were primarily for trade transactions. It is not for an administrative purpose. It was mainly for trade transaction or authorizing a trade or movement of commodities from one place to another. So a certain group of family who were dominant, maybe they were adopting unicorn as their emblem or their motive. Certain other family they might have adopting buffalo as their motive. So that was the main purpose. It was mythical animal. There is no physical presence of unicorn as such. It is only an imagination.
Thank you, sir. My next question is, sir, what is your opinion on Sanauli Chariot? Was it contemporary to Harappans?
Sanauli Chariot is a remarkable find, right? And definitely that has its continuity from the Harappan times. Sanauli, it's a late Harappan culture. It's not a unique civilization, and it is not something came much advanced. Harappans were much more advanced. The only thing is what we see at Sanauli is a group of people who migrated from the Saraswati basin. They were settling in the Ganga Yamuna Doab. So they were carrying all their wealth, they were carrying all their commodities, all their goods to this region only. And ultimately, we are finding it in the burials. At one stage of time, they could not hold it anymore, right? And they were burying it there. We have evidence of chariots from the figurines. If you look into the Harappan artifacts, you have wheels, you have spoked wheels, you have hubbed wheels, you have single person driven chariots. So all those things are there in the terracotta art is there. And here is the physical remain which comes at a later stage. Even the coffin burials of Sanauli, already at Harappa we have the coffin burials. Even they were building coffins using devdar, right? It is coming from the temperate zone, Himalayan region. From there, they are procuring the devdar and they are constructing the coffins, wooden coffin, wooden lids, everything was there. Sanauli, if we look into the jewelry and all, it is all having continuity from the Harappans. So it is a complete a continuity from the Harappans and a lost later part of the Harappan culture. That's it. I mean, it's not very kind of a different civilization, one can say.
Namaste, sir. My name is Gautam Prajapat. I'm the first year student of Indus University CSE branch. So, sir, I have some queries and some questions regarding Harappan civilization, which I really wanted to want the answers from you. So, basically, my first question is, how did the Harappan civilization change the whole discourse of antiquity of ancient India?
You see, I have told you about Harappan civilization. It means the urban stage, right? I mean, through the course of history, we are seeing the evolution of the culture, starting from around 8000 BCE, when they were living in rural settlements, they were living in smaller towns and villages. Slowly, they were gaining knowledge of many different things. Technology is one such aspect. They were maybe using the wheel transport at that particular point of time. They might have invented the wheel. They were also manufacturing the ceramics using a closed furnace system. You see, you have to heat the ceramics in a closed furnace, otherwise you can't attain that high temperature. So controlling the fire they learned it somewhere around 5500 BCE, nearly 7500 years back. So that's how they also learned to smelt the copper. So once they learned to smelt the copper, so they were experimenting many things, right? So slowly the knowledge gained over thousands of years, it culminated in the Harappan period. So whatever the technology they were knowing from the past, they were again using it for more sophisticated purposes. They were again inventing many different things. So this vast knowledge, it transformed the future course of Indian antiquity. If you look into the weighing system, it is still continued. Right? It is based on the grains of rati seeds. So that has the close parallels even during the historical period. The coins that can be equated with the weights of the rati seeds. Even the measurements, even the ratios and proportions, and all these things, it has a long continuity that can be dated back to the Harappan period. So we learnt a lot from the Harappan period. It is not that we reinvented everything. We learnt a lot, and that has a very long continuity transmitted from generation to generation, and it preserved in the vast knowledge process.
Sir. So, sir, my next question is there any archaeological traces of internal conflict within the Harappans or within the Harappan civilization? Or was the Harappans were very peaceful?
Yeah, so far we don't have any kind of conflict. What we see in the Egyptians or the Mesopotamians. If you look into the Egyptian civilization or the Mesopotamian civilization, many things are written. That is one evidence. But archaeologically, there is evidence of burning down the cities like Akkadi and Sargon of Akkad. He was the first ruler to unify the entire Mesopotamian region. Otherwise, they were also city states like the Harappan civilization. So, when he invaded a new city or a town, he just burned down the city. So, archaeologically, you will see the burnt layers, right? So, in the context of Harappan civilization, we don't have any such evidence. We don't see any demolition, desecration, or burning down of the cities. We don't see any such evidence. We don't have standing armies, evidence of standing armies, right? In the case of Egypt and Mesopotamia, we have even the Chinese, we have the standing army. We don't have those kind of warfaring. We don't have sword. We have arrows, arrowheads. We have spearheads, but we don't have any standing army. Maybe they are building their fortifications and all just to defend themselves. Maybe due to some small scale threats, but not invasions.
Harappans were peaceful, right?
Yeah, we can say peaceful. They are integrated maybe based on some ideological similarities. You see, you worship the same deity, I worship the same deity, but yet we are living in different regions. We can come together, right? We may not fight among ourselves. So that could be one unifying factor. There could be matrimonial alliances like put forth by several scholars like Professor Mark Enoyer. He proposes different matrimonial alliances could have integrated the civilization. So there could be many different reasons for that.
Yes, sir. So, sir, like we know that the Saraswati River nowadays it's not there in the on the map. So, was Saraswati still a mythical river? And if not, is there any archaeological and geological traces of its presence?
Saraswati definitely was not a mythical river. We have lot of references in our ancient literature. I also presented and several scholars have worked including Professor Michel Danino, who is here. So you see, it is glorified in our ancient literature, and it has a specific geography that is described in our ancient literature. And starting from 19th century, it is not very new. Like 19th century onward, geologists were the first to identify Oldham. They published maps in the 19th century 1863 70s and 1890s, two different Oldhams. They published, they traced the Saraswati River. Later on 1960s and 70s, the remote sensing, it played a very crucial role. Many different geologists, they used remote sensing and identified a dried river bed running parallel to Indus River, to the east of Indus River, from the Shivaliks to the run of Kutch. So that's a clear-cut evidence that there was a river proved by geology as well as remote sensing, and we know the context through the literature. right? The literature clearly mentions it is between, not directly mentioning, but indirectly we can understand that it is located between Yamuna and Shatudri or Satluj, and the entire geography is mentioned in the Rig Veda, starting from Ganga to Gomal, Swat, and river Kabul. All these rivers are where it is located. It is not located outside India, right? It is not located in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, okay. Some scholars they have tried to identify Saraswati with Harakwati and all those stuff, but there is only one river. I mean, right? But where are the other rivers? So some say that they migrated from there to here. So they migrated along with the knowledge of the river Saraswati. But what about the other rivers? If they migrated with the knowledge of river Saraswati, where are the other rivers also? They should have identified rivers there also, right? So I don't consider it a mythical river. It is a reality we need to accept. There is a vast amount of geological remote sensing data indicating a river flowing between Yamuna and Satluj, and even Satluj was draining into Saraswati at one point of time. It was contributing a lot for the flow of water in Saraswati. So all these things are there. I mean, we need to I mean, indirectly it also indicates that Saraswati was flowing before 1900 BCE, and Dr. Bisht and many other scholars they identify that if a river was flowing before 1900 BCE and a culture that came to an end around 1900 BCE, they could be contemporary, right? Maybe the Rig Veda, they might go further in antiquity. They may date back even thousands of years back, but still there was a river, there was a culture. But whether it is contemporary or not, okay, I mean, it is for the larger public to decide. I mean,
Sir, as you talked about the oldest Veda, the Rig Veda, so my next question regarding that only, that what is the connection between the Rig Veda and the Harappan civilization?
that's what I'm telling, right? I mean, we can't fix a chronology for Rig Veda. I mean, it's much older, maybe much older, because there are several strands of history within the Rig Veda. We cannot particularly say which part can belong to which culture. So it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint any kind of, but there are certain certain areas where there are coincidences. There are certain evidences which indicate that there could be a overlap. That's it, and beyond that we cannot say.
So, like we know that many civilizations are there, and none of the civilizations like directly die, or we can say over. So every civilization just transform. So like that way only, the Harappan civilization. What is the reason of the transformation of Harappan civilization? And it transformed. So what can we learn from the Harappan civilization?
You see, resilience is the thing what we should learn from the Harappans, right? They did not die out, right, completely. So that this transformation was due to different reasons. One is the climatic thing, which for which we have a vast pool of evidences now. Different areas people have tried to find out the evidence, starting from Arabian Sea core to Himalayan caves to Meghalaya caves. There are different areas, even the old lakes of Haryana. There also we have tried to understand the paleoclimatic changes. But ultimately, it was not a sudden event. One needs to understand that it did not die suddenly and it did not progress suddenly. It was a long process. So the scholars now agree that there was a long drought of nearly 200 years that could have transformed the monsoonal cycles, and that could have triggered a series of events, could have led to low productivity. But another very important event is the drying up of the Saraswati. Like, you see, we see definite evidence of around 1900 BC, this vast river network, it is drying out. There could be different reasons for the tectonic movement or the capturing of the river Satluj by the Indus system, because Indus, which was once Satluj, it was once flowing into the Saraswati, it was captured by the Indus system. So it joined the Bias, and then ultimately it drew a new course. So that could be one reason, because Satluj is glacial fed. So there is perennial water throughout the year. Unlike Saraswati, it could not have been glacial fed. It could have been monsoonal fed. or maybe different rivers were contributing, maybe upper reaches of Saraswati, there are some tectonic movements. So all these things are, they might have contributed in the overall changes in the river network. So that could be another reason. That's why we see a shift in settlements. Settlements located along the Saraswati, they are abandoning and they are moving upstream. Why they should go upstream, not elsewhere? Because they are finding water upstream. Water is still available upstream. So they are moving into those regions, abandoning the mid courses and the lower courses. So I would say change in the climatic cycle as well as the drying up of Saraswati could be the main reason.
And what can we learn from that transformation?
Yeah, resilience. I told you about the resilience, right? I mean, particularly in the Gujarat region, people were not relying anymore on the wheat and barley only, right? They are transforming into millet production. Millets, they are prone to arid environment. You can grow millets with very less water. So we transform ourselves. I mean, if we see some drastic change, we are transforming ourselves, adapting to a new kind of lifestyle, maybe. So that's what we should learn. Actually, we should try to maybe not to harm the nature in a major way. We need to adapt to assisting the nature, replenish that, right? Sustainability should be there. Without sustainability, we cannot survive. So we need to maybe make some crucial decisions to adapt and accept the nature in its own manner, not try to overcome it. So that could be the lesson what we should learn from the Harappans.
Yeah, that was great, sir. Sir, my last question is we are in the 21st century. So, what is the relevance of those archaeological discoveries and the Harappan civilization, Indus Valley civilization, many other civilizations? So, what is the relevance of all these discoveries in our 21st century? Like, what can we learn and how they impact in the 21st century?
You see, the relevance of the past is that we understand ourselves in a better manner. One is that is the relevance of the past, and we can also try to understand in a manner that we can discard all the myths, right? We should not what is a kind of follow the myths, follow the wrong stories perpetuated by vested interest. So one can take a very pointed decision based upon our understanding of our past. If somebody is coming and tell you that no, your history is that you are always relied upon various other technologies that came from outside. No, you can say no. I mean, we were inventing ourselves. We were also coexisting. We were also learning. But it's not that everything was imposed upon us or everything we learned from outside. So that is one story. You can better represent yourself, I would say, right? Knowing your past better, you can represent yourself in a better. You have that kind of identity, and you learn from your past mistakes, right? You can correct them. You have the opportunity to correct. If you don't correct, that is upon ourselves only. I mean, if we don't correct from our past mistakes. So we have several chances of correcting our past mistakes, living in the present situation, so that we can plan a better future. It's ultimately human progression happen because of we plan for the future, right? We always plan for the future. We did not satisfy ourselves for the present and then we die ourselves. No, we can plan for a better future using the vast knowledge of history.
Hello everyone, I'm Rupal Joshi. Hello sir. And I have two questions. One is that how did Harappan people communicate to the foreign people, like foreign civilizations for the trade? How did they communicate?
So that's a wonderful question because we have a beautiful seal from Mesopotamian civilization datable to around 2300 BCE, nearly 4300 years back. So there is a seal, it mentions Su Ilusu, the name of the person, a Meluhan interpreter, right? So that answers your question. I mean, Harappans, maybe they were engaging interpreters to communicate, to maybe do trade transactions with a foreign land, with a foreign king, and there is growing evidence that the Harappans themselves, they might have settled in Mesopotamian towns and cities. That could be also one possibility, because there are clear cut evidence from the Mesopotamian things that they are paying some taxes, they are paying some fines also to overcome internal conflicts. All these things were happening. So definitely they had interpreters.
So I have one more question to this. Uh, did Harappan people believe in the deities and they had some gods, or did they worship some kind of?
Definitely Harappans, they had some sort of religion, right? More towards the nature worship. So we have lot of evidence of tree worship. We have the people tree might have been definitely worshipped. We have depictions on the Harappan seal. We have depictions of certain sacrifices happening in front of a deity. A deity is shown in a yogic posture, seated cross-legged. It is shown repeatedly and on a pedestal within an enclosure that could be a temple. We don't have an evidence of a temple, but still there are depictions which clearly indicate nature worship was there and some sort of deities were definitely, we don't know the name, but still they were definitely worshipping some sort of religion. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. That was great. And that is the end of my questions. Thank you so much for giving your precious time to us and solving our queries and answering to all our questions. So it was a great experience to interact with you and talking with you. So thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.